ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ 2021 ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਡਨ ਸ਼ੇਰ-ਏ-ਪੰਜਾਬ ਰੇਡੀਓ ਤੇ।
ਸਵਾਲ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ,
ਸ਼ਬਦ ਸਾਡੇ,
ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਕਹਾਣੀ।
ਸੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਅਗਲੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਸਾਡੇ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਨਮੁਖ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਜੀਵਨ ਬਾਰੇ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਿਆਸੀ ਜੀਵਨ ਬਾਰੇ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਇਕੱਤਰ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਫੈਸਲੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨੇ। ਮੈਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਵਾਰ-ਵਾਰ ਕਹਿ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਡਾ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਮਕਸਦ ਇੱਕੋ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟਸ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਬਾਰੇ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਿਆਸੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਬਾਰੇ ਔਰ ਮੋਟੇ-ਮੋਟੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਪੈਸ਼ਨੇਟ ਨੇ, ਜੀ ਜਾਨ ਨਾਲ ਡੋਰ ਨੌਕਿੰਗ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, ਲੋਕਾਂ ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੱਕ ਪੁੱਜਦੀ ਕਰੀਏ। ਡਿਸੀਜਨ ਇਜ਼ ਯੋਰਸ। 20 ਤਰੀਕ ਨੂੰ ਵੋਟ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਹਨੂੰ ਪਾਉਣੀ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਫੈਸਲਾ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਹੋਏਗਾ। ਸੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਅਗਲੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਨੇ, ਕੈਰੀ ਲਿਨ ਫਿਨਲੇ। ਕੈਰੀ ਲਿਨ ਫਿਨਲੇ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੁਣਿਆ, ਬਹੁਤ ਲੰਬੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਤੋਂ ਸਿਆਸਤ 'ਚ ਨੇ, ਪੜ੍ਹੇ ਲਿਖੇ ਨੇ, ਲਾਅ ਦੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਈ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸਟੀਵਨ ਹਾਰਪਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੀ ਵਜ਼ਾਰਤ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਰਹਿ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਨੇ ਅਤੇ ਪੀਟਰ ਮਕੇ ਹੋਣਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਡਿਫੈਂਸ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਹੋਣਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਉਸੇ ਵਿਭਾਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਐਸੋਸੀਏਟ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਵਜੋਂ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਮੂੰਹੋਂ ਵੀ ਸੁਣਦੇ ਆ। ਔਰ ਕੈਰੀ ਲਿਨ ਫਿਨਲੇ ਹੋਣੀ ਸਾਊਥ ਸਰੀ ਵਾਈਟ ਰੌਕ ਤੋਂ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਪਿਛਲੀ ਵਾਰ ਜਿੱਤੇ ਸਨ, ਐਤਕੀ ਫੇਰ ਮੈਦਾਨ 'ਚ ਨੇ। ਕੈਰੀ, ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ, ਵੈਲਕਮ।
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ।
I think I gave a rough idea about your background, about your life so far, but we want to listen to you from your mouth.
I heard something about cabinet, passionate, and door knocking. So that I got.
Okay.
And all of it's true. Yes, I've been in politics. I'm now, I guess, considered a seasoned parliamentarian. In Stephen Harper's government, I was Parliamentary Secretary to Justice. I'm a lawyer by background, I think you mentioned.
Did you ever practice? Let me quick question.
Oh, yeah, for many years in downtown Vancouver.
Okay.
I have a Queen's Counsel designation. I was president of the Bar Association in BC. So I had a very successful career in law, civil litigation, trial work, not criminal. But I wanted to do more, something different. I graduated from UBC at a young age, and I had only been a lawyer. I'm also a mother of 4. And I
And a grandmother of 4 as well.
And a grandmother of 4 now. So
You love 4, figure.
apparently. I won't say I'm ending there with the grandchildren, but nowadays 4 is a reasonably big family, not really big, but I'm one of 7 myself. So. But I'm very much enjoying giving back to the community through politics, through my advocacy. I know how to debate. I know how to put the issues forward. And in that role, under Stephen Harper, I was Parliamentary Secretary to Justice. Then I became Associate Minister of National Defence when I worked closely with Peter MacKay. And then I became the Minister of National Revenue. So you and all Canadians gave me their money. I didn't keep it, but I had it for a while. And then I was also in Treasury Board then, which is the final decision body for all spending in government. And now, in opposition, I've been the Member of Parliament for South Surrey White Rock since 2019. I was the Shadow Minister for the Environment and Climate Change. Now I'm the lead representative on CANZIC, which is a wish for a deeper alliance between the UK, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia, and many levels, not just trade, but also people, mobility, things like that. I also am the Vice Chair of the Joint Parliamentary Committee on Medical Assistance in Dying, which is a very big and sensitive topic, and I'm on the Justice Committee.
Big time. So how do you keep your enthusiasm intact? It's not easy doing it because Canadian politics, what happens is once you lose the election, once you have a family to take care, people, they just want to stay away from the politics. I have seen many in last election. Your colleagues, even Jason Kenney, he left politics and then he's back in provincial. And Peter MacKay, and there's so many others. It happens only in Canadian politics. So what kept you active in the politics?
That's a great question. I think politics has a lot to do with timing generally. It has to be the right time in your life. Sometimes people want to be in politics, their children are too young, or perhaps their job it's just not comfortable to leave it and try and come back, things like that. For me, I just have a passion for serving and for helping people. I feel this is a place where my talents are well used. And right now, I want to see a change in Ottawa. I really want to see an end to corruption in Canada. This is a place people come from many other countries to get away from corruption. We've seen a lot of it with this Liberal government. And I want to
elaborate
see a
on the
return.
corruption part of what is wrong. People didn't see it in 2019 because SNC-Lavalin, everybody was talking about, but that didn't translate in Mr. Trudeau losing votes.
Well, if you recall, in 2019, we actually won the popular vote. More Canadians voted for Conservatives than for Liberals. It has to do with seat distribution, which has a lot to do with where our population is, but even a lot to do with the history of Canada. And we're still really a young country, 154 years old. So that was unfortunate that more Canadians voted for us, but we didn't win as many seats. We'll see what happens this time. But the corruption has been ongoing. The latest, just before the summer recess, was the government suing our own parliament, our government suing our parliament and our speaker because they didn't want to disclose documents about the dismissal of 2 Chinese scientists from
the Wuhan laboratory.
Exactly, in Winnipeg. And the Parliament ordered disclosure of those documents 4 times, and they refused, had nowhere else to go, so decided to go to court and then called an election in a pandemic. So there is a lot that should be answered, and when we form government, we intend to get to the bottom of some of that. You mentioned SNC-Lavalin. That was a big topic at one time, a lot of scandal involved there. And then just again, a few months before the election, the Liberals gave a sole source contract, no bidding, of $150 million to SNC-Lavalin to build tents for a hospital in Toronto for COVID. So they're still dealing with a company that has a questionable record.
Okay, now let's talk about the pandemic and how the present government, they handled it. Kindly, what's your take and what's your analysis of them handling it? Did they really do it well? Because I interviewed Mr. Aaron O'Toole, I talked to Mr. Jagmeet Singh many times during the pandemic and asked them, why are you not criticizing present government? Either you are with them, everything is fine, or you should be criticizing. And Aaron O'Toole or your party, you didn't criticize much. But now in the campaign, there's so many things that are coming on the surface now.
It's been a very difficult time for the last 18 months for all of us and for Canadians generally. I believe we did state quite clearly where we felt the Liberal government was not doing a good job. But on the other hand, we also wanted to cooperate in a Team Canada approach where we were really trying to help Canadians get through a difficult time. So it has been a difficult dance, if you will. But first of all, the Liberal government did not react nearly quickly enough. We were telling them in late 2019 and then early 2020, we were hearing reports of this coming. They dismissed them, no big deal, nothing to worry about. Then when it became evident that there was a pandemic called in March, their first reaction was to try and make a deal with a Chinese government-backed company for our
There were so many
PPE
shortcomings,
and
but
things
eventually
like
we are
which fell apart, right?
We are now
So-
we are one amongst the top countries. We have vaccination, as far as vaccination is concerned. We are doing good. But what would you do? How would you handle Canada at this stage, at this critical juncture, differently if you come to power and your party comes to power?
Well, what we have to do is we have to get our priorities straight again. Of course, we need to be safe and we need to help people get through a health crisis, and we're not out of it yet. On the other hand, we wouldn't have called an election during the middle of a pandemic and spent over $610 million on that election. We would have put more time and energy and thought into growing our economy and not letting the economy go so far down as the Liberal government have. Part of this is the spending before the pandemic. We had ground down to zero growth before, and we were in a very bad spot. Now, with the necessary spending as well as reckless spending, we are at a GDP ratio, debt to GDP ratio of 118%. Once you get over 77%, it starts to work against you. That's why we have high inflation, now 4.1%. This is why the price of everything is going up. This isn't the way to do it. We need to start looking for efficiencies in government. We need to start paying attention to recovery. All our communities around here, my own, all through the Lower Mainland, we're really communities of small business people. And they have really suffered during this pandemic because of lockdowns, because of slowing down in the supply chain. There's just many issues for them. Some haven't made it, and some have barely held on. So we have a job surge plan, we have an economic recovery plan that we're pretty proud of, that we know will help bring investment back to Canada, which is hemorrhaged out of Canada under the Liberals. And we know that we will always be the ones to support small business.
Kerry, I didn't ask you where do you live, because but other candidate, Liberal candidate I know, Mr. Gordy Hogue, has been living for 5-6 decades or something. His dad was there as a doctor, I know him. So do you live in your riding?
Yes, we live in South Surrey.
South Surrey.
We lived in White Rock for about a year, but we've lived in South Surrey for a few years now.
One question that Mr. Trudeau, he kept asking during the campaign to Erin O'Toole that why you so anti-vaccines, why don't you declare that all the candidates are vaccinated? Are you vaccinated?
I am. But the way we look at it is this. 90% is what we're aiming for in terms of vaccination. We are encouraging people to get vaccinated. Having said that, we also believe in freedom of choice, freedom of health choice. And there are people who have legitimate medical reasons not to be vaccinated. There are people who have charter protected reasons to not be vaccinated. And so we recognize that. You can't make blanket rules for everyone. We have to be mindful of that. Even a lot of the union leadership said to Mr. Trudeau at the time, what are you saying? You can't just say you're going to fire people from their jobs. So it's again something we want people to be safe, but we also want to have a mind to economic recovery. We want to build infrastructure. We want to help people in the Lower Mainland move around, goods, people, services. We need to put people above politics, frankly.
So your own personal performance so far, first time, let's forget about that, but this time you were elected, whereas the government was Liberal Party's government.
Yes.
So why do you think people should make you win once again? Why do you deserve their vote?
Well, I think the people who've interacted with me know how much I care about the community, how much I care about people in general. I've been a strong advocate on affordability, on housing. I've stood up when the Liberal Party has done things to excess or done things that didn't make sense. I've been very, very responsive to the people in my community. I think it's really important for a member of Parliament to do that. You need to be willing to listen, but also to act. And what we found with this Liberal government is they talk a lot, they make big pronouncements, but they're very slow on the plan, very slow on implementation, how you're going to do it. The most calls I've had in my Member of Parliament office have been from people saying, oh, we thought there was a new program, or oh, we've been told we can't get home, we're stuck in India, or we're stuck on a cruise ship, or we're stuck in wherever, somewhere around the world, and now we can't get home. And yet the rules are changing. So we've worked very hard this year to make sure we're responsive, we get people the answers they need. That will continue with me. And I believe I know what the people in my community need and want. They want to be able to get back to work. They want their businesses to get going again. They want to be safe. They understand that. But they also want to be able to have these infrastructure projects built. We've committed to a Massey Tunnel replacement. We've committed to rebuilding the foundations of White Rock Pier. All those businesses along the shoreline depend on that kind of tourism attraction. And we've also committed to the SkyTrain extension, Surrey to Langley. The day before Mr. Trudeau did, it was interesting. Mr. O'Toole said it, then Mr. Trudeau said it.
What does Mr. Aaron O'Toole mean when he said this morning somewhere that this party is not your papa's party? We are changed people now. What does it mean?
I'm not sure. I completely understand that. I didn't know he said that. I know I've said that about the Liberal Party, that the Liberal Party isn't your father's Liberal Party because they're no longer the
Literally.
party. Yeah, literally, but they're no longer the party of Pearson and Martin and Turner and people like that. They've certainly gone way over, in my view, to the left, often left of the NDP for that matter. For our party, I mean, it's the party I joined and I'm proud to serve. I'm not sure that our essentials have changed that much, but he's a new leader with a fresh approach, and I think really that's what he's talking about. Don't put labels on him from the past. Look at him, look at who he is, a veteran, a lawyer, a father, a parliamentarian, and a genuine person.
Law and order is a big issue in South Surrey
Yes.
ridings, White Rock. What's your party's position on that as far as we have guns on the streets, and how does what's the plan of your party to contain that? Are they going to totally change the position the Liberals are taking now, or can you let us know a little bit about that?
It is a serious issue. It's a serious issue throughout the Lower Mainland, but as far as Surrey is concerned, South Surrey is no stranger to gang violence particularly. In fact, they just sentenced the two men who killed a Hells Angel figure going through the Starbucks lineup at South
Yes.
Point. That's just in the news again. And that's pretty shocking when if you were in that lineup, you'd be pretty shocked if that happened in front of you. So, and we also had a male nurse who was killed in his driveway in his own home.
Mistaken identity, yes.
identity. It was very sad. He was a coach and a well-loved person and a family man. So it does affect us all. As far as our government is concerned, we want to put the blame where the blame belongs, which is in people and gangs that choose criminality. We believe in victims' rights. In fact, we brought in the Victims' Bill of Rights. We believe in putting victims' rights ahead of the rights of criminals. And so when it comes to guns, what we want to see is an end to smuggled guns. My colleague Bob Soroya from Mississauga area, he put out a bill saying if it would be a criminal offense to knowingly possess a smuggled gun, and the Liberals voted it down. They're all about controlling guns, but they go after law-abiding Canadians who own guns instead of the criminals. We need to do more to educate kids so they don't choose gang life. There's lots of good programs already that we can support, like the Surrey Crime Prevention Society. They do great work. And
are you in favor of keeping RCMP or letting RCMP go?
Well, that is a municipal and provincial
I know,
decision.
but because we are discussing law and order now, and this is a kind of federal issue as a little bit as well.
Well, in the sense that as a federal representative, I will work with law enforcement, whatever that
Doesn't
looks
matter who
like.
comes.
I mean, the RCMP will still be in White Rock, and as far as Surrey, they're in transition at the moment. I did express the opinion publicly that I thought, given the pushback on the issue, that perhaps there should be a referendum of some kind, but there is no obligation right now on the province to do that. People are trying to still persuade the province to do it. The city of Surrey has said no, and a tripartite agreement has been signed. So at the end of the day, I know it's controversial, but I'm prepared to work with whatever law enforcement is there and in place, and I've done that before. When I was the MP for Delta Richmond East, I worked with Richmond RCMP and Delta Police.
Quickly, we don't have much time left. Quickly, your riding is a border riding almost. So
Yes, it is a
we
border
have
riding.
opened the border for Americans, but they haven't yet. So, anything on that issue? Would you like to share?
It's
anything?
very curious to me that there hasn't been better coordination between the Canadian government and the American government. Obviously, they closed it together, so you would have expected them to open it together. I think that Mr. Trudeau did that knowing he was calling an election. He thought it would be something that would be favorable for him, but to do it without dealing with the American side seems short-sighted to me. My riding has 2 border crossings, and the riding goes from number 10 Highway South between Delta and Langley,
I'm your
basically,
voter,
right?
I'm in your riding.
Right. I won't try and persuade you on air, but consider me. But I'm very concerned about the lack of coordination and the lack of metrics. This is what people are looking for. What is the plan to reopen?
I guess we are done with the time. I'm getting a signal from there.
Okay.
You have 50 seconds to close.
Okay.
You can look toward the camera.
I just want to thank you very much for the opportunity to be here with you today. I've enjoyed the interview. This is a very important election. I don't think it should have been called in the pandemic, but once it was called, I've embraced the opportunity. And what we want to see is change in Ottawa. And in South Surrey White Rock, I'm looking to be re-elected as the Member of Parliament to continue to serve the good people there. And I thank you for the opportunity to chat again.
Thank you for being in the studio. So, ACG ਸਾਡੀ ਅਗਲੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਕੈਰੀਲਨ ਫਿਨਲੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਸਿਲਸਿਲਾ ਚੱਲਦਾ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ। ਬਰਾੜ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਮੇਰੇ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਚਾਲੂ ਰੱਖਣਗੇ। ਉਮੀਦ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ 600 AM ਦੇ ਇਸ ਉਪਰਾਲੇ ਨੂੰ ਪਸੰਦ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇੱਥੇ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ ਦਿਓ। ਮਿਲਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਸਵੇਰੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਤੇ